This is the Sideline Slice, presented by Valentino's Pizza, the official pizza of the Huskers. Here's your host, Jessica Coody, and Husker Radio Network analyst, Jeremiah Sirles.
Welcome back into another episode of the Sideline Slice. He's Jeremiah Sirles. I'm Jessica Coody. Sirles, you had a big weekend. How are you recovering? How much fun was it? Lots of football for you.
Yeah, no, it was a great weekend. The wife and I flew out on Friday to New York, did touristy things on Friday, walked around, saw Times Square for the first time, went and saw Central Park, and then went out to dinner on Jersey side. So took the ferry over to Jersey, went out to dinner with the client there, and then on Saturday morning flew to Boston for a wedding in Boston. So spent the day in Boston and then flew back Sunday to New York. And then spent the day kind of tootling around there, and then went to Sunday Night Football, and then stayed the night and went to Monday Night Football. So it was a lot of fun, great time. You know, the city is unique. I'm not a city person. I was very ready to come home after a couple of days in the city in the concrete jungle. But no, it was a lot of fun. Good to spend time with the wife. Good to see. I mean, it's a favorite part of my job, getting to go see my guys do what they do best, which is play football. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. How's Adrien doing?
He's doing great. Yeah, he's doing great. You know, he's in a good spot. The coaches love him. The front office loves him. So they really like what he's doing. And, I mean, they mentioned how great it was to have him in practice this week when they're playing against guys like Josh Allen, right? They're going to run all over and do all sorts of crazy things. So he's really doing a nice job up there.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, let's get into this week's matchup. If I would have told you 6 months ago that this matchup between Nebraska and Indiana would be what it is, with a big noon kickoff and the pregame show going to be there, what would you have said?
I would have laughed at you. I would have laughed at you and said, oh, that's funny. Or there must be no good games that weekend. You know, if you kind of looked at the schedule as a whole from the Huskers' perspective, this wasn't one you had circled, right? This wasn't like this is a critical point in the season, right? This is a turning point or could be a springboard into our back half. It was kind of like, oh, got to go to Bloomington in October. Right, just kind of brushed by like, oh, well, UCLA is coming to town soon. But this has turned into such an important game for both of these teams. You know, you look at Nebraska with the one loss, Indiana, no losses, and you're going, this could be a turning point for both these teams for Big Ten championship type caliber stuff. So super excited to see what this team's going to bring for the Husker standpoint. I think Indiana's feeling themselves really well, so it's going to be a grinder. I think it's going to be an absolute grinder of a game. Okay, so we've joked with you a lot in the picks throughout the last few years. You've been an Indiana guy, but you know, with the turnaround, and I know you were recruited by Coach Allen there, but what do you think has been the biggest key to the turnaround? I mean, I know they've got a lot of different players they got from the portal, but what are you seeing in Indiana this year that's allowed for them to get off to this start? You know, the biggest thing is they're very well coached. And Urban Meyer did his Big Ten breakdown of them and talked about this. And they are just, from offense, defense, special teams perspective, very well coached and being very disciplined. And when you play football like that, even if you don't have the most talented roster in the world, you're going to win a lot of football games. And people can say, oh, their schedule's this or schedule's that. It's hard to win a game week in and week out, especially at a program like Indiana where you're not getting the blue-collar recruits. They're the blue-chip recruits, right? You're building it from the portal, and you're building it from guys inside out. And they've done a great job, especially on the offensive side of the ball. You know, I read that they have 25-plus explosive plays. They have perfected the back shoulder fade. You know, they are just clicking on offense, and so much of that has to do from the coach. You know, from the coach down, everyone looks like they're believing. Everyone looks like they understand their job, and everyone is playing for each other. And when you have a football team that does that, that's a very dangerous football team. And so I think the turnaround has just been new life with the coach, some belief in the system. And then once you have that taste of success like they've had early in this year, they're just continuing to grow in more and more confidence and growing to believe in themselves that every single week they walk out on the field, they can win that game. You spend a lot of time evaluating talent. It's part of your job outside of talking behind the microphone. When you've watched Indiana and you kind of take a look at that talent, where is a position group that maybe concerns you the most in this matchup? The receiver room. You know, I think their receiver room is very talented in the way that they can go up and get the football. And a lot of that comes from just the fade game for them is two parts. They throw it over your head if you get caught looking in the backfield, and then they have a very good feel of if the corners press man and running with you, throwing to that back shoulder fade and either A, completing it, or B, getting a pass interference. So our DB group has to very, very, very much be on their P's and Q's this week of great technique, staying inside out, not playing handsy, and then getting our heads turned around when the ball's in the air. Right? When the ball's in the air, whether it's an over the shoulder fade or a back shoulder fade, we have to make sure that we have our hands around, or else we're going to get penalties or explosive plays.
Greg and I talked about this on Sports Nightly the other night, but, for this defense, they don't make it as much about getting off to a fast start. It's playing a complete game and a fourth quarter shutout. So they don't make the start any bigger than any other part of the game. But you've been a part of explosive offenses. When you come out of the gate and a defense makes it very hard from the start, how frustrating is that for an offense when you have an explosive offense like Indiana has been, what Colorado has been, what Nebraska did to Colorado? How frustrating can that be to not get off to the start you want to get off to offensively? Yeah,
it's very frustrating, especially when that's your norm, right? When your norm is, hey, we're going to go out and score points. Right, we're going to score points. We're going to score a touchdown or field goal on our first possession. We're going to have 14 to 17 points in the first quarter. Right, like that's just what we're used to. That's just what we do. When you get kind of punched in the face as an offense, and all of a sudden you're going, "Whoa, we have 3 points, and it's the first quarter's done." You start to really get out of your flow and get out of your rhythm, and that's one thing that Indiana's been great at this year is staying in rhythm offensively. And what Tony White's defense does to you is he throws a lot at you and makes you think a lot and makes you try and think. And when you think, you stink. And all of a sudden your rhythm's off and you're missing easy throws and side adjusts, or you're not IDing the right guys and guys are coming free, and things can start to spiral a little bit. And we got to see Northwestern and Indiana go back a little bit back and forth with it wasn't just super clean the entire time, but then Indiana, ended up pulling away. But I'd love to see what happens to this Indiana team when they have to punt 3 or 4 times in a row, or they're not crossing the 50 on a normal basis, or they're not getting those explosive plays. And can Indiana beat you with going first down, second down, third down, 6-7 times down the field to go score a touchdown? Right. So limiting their explosive plays and getting them to have to really work for those first downs is going to be critical from this defense.
How do you like the matchup in the trenches? You feel like Huskers have the edge there?
I think they do. I want to see Indiana's run game's been okay. I would really like to see what Nash and Ty can do up front and letting these linebackers run, because I do think we have the more physical group defensively. I think offensively we're really going to need to protect Raiola. They got some guys that can get after the passer. But I think from a defensive schematic standpoint, I like our defensive line more than their offensive line. And I think our offensive line and their defensive line are pretty comparable to each other.
What's that like when you maybe haven't faced as physical football teams and you run out there and you get, punched pretty good in the mouth against a physical football team like what Nebraska hopes to be?
Yeah, the thing is they're not going to be lacking confidence, right? They're going to come in thinking, hey, we're Big Ten players too. We've played Big Ten teams. We've done things well. And so they're going to come out with a lot of confidence. It's the Nebraska's job to take that confidence away. And when you go out there and you physically punch a team in the mouth early, it's really easy to lose that confidence. I mean, I've been parts of those teams. I remember playing Wisconsin. The first time we went to Wisconsin in 2011, we joined the Big Ten. We thought, okay, we're going to come out there, we're going to score. And they punched us square in the teeth, and we never recovered. Right. And so I think Nebraska is going to be looking at that going to, okay, this Indiana team, they're not as scared of us as they shouldn't be. They're undefeated, all this stuff. It's our job to put the fear in them. Right. And how do you do that? You physically beat them up. You physically beat them up in between the white lines, in between the whistles. You just hammer them every single play over and over and over again. And then they're going to go to the side going, oh, this ain't Northwestern anymore, boys. These are big fellas. Right. And then they have to start trying to play you. But it doesn't matter. You can scheme up all the wonderful things. Nothing rattles a football team more than getting out physical early in the game.
So on that note, you talk about scheming, both teams coming off of a bye. Greg and I also talked about this, just over the last couple of weeks for both coaching staff. It'll be intriguing to watch the chess matchup of just the game plans, right, of both teams coming off this bye and just, as you alluded to earlier, a really big game in the season for both teams.
Yeah, I think the beginning part of the game, you might see a little bit of a nod towards the offensive side of the ball on both sides, just based off of scripting, right? So the first 10, the first 15 plays are scripted plays. Usually, not every team does this, but usually you script the first 15, and it's based off of what you want to see the defense line up in, so you can get to plays later in the game, but it's also just what you want to put on the defense's plate to have to game plan for during the game. And usually those scripted plays are pretty good up and down the field type of plays that you feel really comfortable running because you have a really good idea of what they're going to run. Then the chess match really starts after those first team plays. Right, once the script's done on both sides, and now you're getting into O coordinator versus D coordinator, and who can make the in-game adjustments, who can have the wrinkle, who can put the other one on their heels, right? That's where I'm really excited to see the chess match start to come, because there has been so much preparation between Tony White and Satterfield going against their D coordinator and offensive coordinator and saying, okay, here's what we practiced during the week. Can you stop it? Or, hey, here's a blitz that we put in during the week. Can you pick it up? Right? And it's going to be vice versa for the Huskers. We have to be ready to make a ton of in-game adjustments to see what Indiana wants to throw at us as the game goes on.
Valentino's, treasured Italian family recipes passed down for generations. Valentino's has become Nebraska's classic Italian tradition and proudly served in Memorial Stadium for over 30 years.
Well, the Huskers are going for win number 6, and we all know what that means, the significance of that, and just the opportunity for this team and for the players on this team that have not been able to play in a bowl game since they've been here at Nebraska. As a player, are you thinking about that? I mean, I know you were not in a situation where you were not playing in bowl games, and now all of a sudden you have a chance to, but is it something that you think that is lingering in the minds of these players?
Yeah, it's nothing that I can really relate to in that realm because we just kind of knew we were going to one every year. But I definitely believe for guys that have been here for 5 years, have bled, some guys 6 years, and have bled and been parts of really lean years and really tough times. Yeah, that 6 games is definitely something that's in the back of their mind, right? Like, this is a big reason why I want to come back to go to a bowl game. But I do think that has supplanted that being the goal, right? Remember, everyone was like, let's just go to a bowl game, right? Even fans like, I just love to go to a bowl game. But with the performance that we've seen from this team through the first 5 weeks or 6 weeks here, our goals are so much higher.
Yeah.
There's so much more we want to accomplish. There's so much more that we want to go do, and we have the opportunity to do it with the talent that we have. That while, yes, getting to a bowl game is exciting and it's something this team has never done and wants to do, but I think that everyone understands that we have played better now, that a bowl game should be starting to be expected like it was forever and always. And now there's so much more like conference titles and those type of things that are our true goals. But the bowl game is a great first step in that process.
And I think this coaching staff, Coach Rule, first and foremost, has done a great job about, keeping it that 1-0, and it's just about this week, and nothing bigger than just beating Indiana and going 1-0 this week. But I would figure, because it is something that is being talked about, that it'd be something that it's at least has entered in the minds at some point of getting that 6th win.
For sure. And, you start, once you get the 6th win, you start going, all right, I don't want to play in the Idaho Potato Bowl. I want to play in the Capital One Bowl in Orlando, right? I want to go play at a big-time bowl on January 1st. I want to be in the Fiesta Bowl. Like, that's where it starts really getting fun, is when you're going, okay, yeah, 6 wins is great, and we're going to get a chance to go to a bowl game, but let's go to a fun bowl game. Let's go to one where there's a lot of bells and whistles, and we know Nebraska is always going to get the bowl bid over other Big Ten teams because we know our fans are the best and they're going to travel, right? Like, all that stuff comes into it. So, yeah, I think that it's definitely in the minds of players, but it's not something that I think they're lingering on.
How do you want to see Dylan Raiola respond, and what are you looking for out of him here in his 2nd road game of his young career?
He's done so much right, and I feel like last week things just got away from him, or 2 weeks ago things got away from him a little bit at times. So that was a crazy windy game, and there was stuff blowing everywhere. So I would love to just see him settle back in and just take command of the offense again. Right, just take command, settle everyone down. Don't ride the roller coaster. Be the thermostat, not the thermometer, and just like you've been for the first 5 games of the year, and just let the game come to you. Don't force things. Don't put your Superman cape on. Play within the scheme. Let Satterfield set you up for when to take the deep shots and when to take your shots. But play within the scheme. Take the underneath stuff and just become a little bit more of that game manager stuff this week to start yourself back out coming out of the bye. Right? Everyone wants to start hot coming out of the bye. It's okay. Come in. Just understand things are going to happen in this game and just get ready for a dogfight.
I do want to give you a little bit of props because last week on the podcast, we spent a lot of time talking about the explosive run plays. And you said, quote, you don't get explosive run plays if you don't get blocking on the perimeter. And I'll be danged if I wasn't watching a football game, I don't even remember which one, if the announcer didn't say that exact same thing. And was diving into an explosive run and said, the reason why this happened is because of this blocking right here on the perimeter. And then you also brought up, when we were talking about Dylan, that it wasn't necessarily all on him, that it was just maybe one or two guys not doing their job. And then Marcus Satterfield said the same thing in his press conference yesterday. So I think you might know what you're talking about a little bit.
Yeah, I got what I like to refer to as a PhD in football. 5 years of college, 6 years of post-career, post-school. But it's just such a true thing. And I've heard every coach at every level talking about it. It's been proven on every tape I've ever watched that, you can have the front five and the tight ends blocking their tails off, and if it bounces to the safety and he's standing there, it's a 10-yard gain. But if that running back or that tight end or that receiver cracks in there and goes in there and is willing to get dirty and push himself against other guys, and maybe he's going to get bounced around like a pinball in there in the land of giants, but he's willing to do it, that's how that 10-yard run becomes 25. That's how that springs for the touchdown, right? And then the passing game, every route is designed for the hole, right? Yes, there's first read, second read, third reads, but if the first read is the slant or the corner, let's say the first read's the corner, but the inside receiver's got to make sure he runs across that safety's face to make sure the corner's open. You got to make sure everyone's doing everything right, or else there's going to be guys in too close a proximity to each other where a safety can guard two, or all this stuff comes into it. And so yes, you can say the passing game's so much is on Raiola. Well, yeah, he's the one that's got to deliver it. But even this week, watching the Jets play and watching Aaron Rodgers after the game, he said, we had on the last play of the game where he threw the interception, he goes, well, we have a conversion when they play cloud where Mike Williams is supposed to run, get on the red line, and then I'm supposed to throw it to him, and he didn't do it, and it turns into an interception, right? All that stuff matters in the pass game. It's not just about the delivery of the snap, the throw, the catch. It's about everything that happens in between, of making sure the spacing's right, making sure guys are in the proper position so that the corner can't sit and guard two. So much comes into the game of football on the offensive side of the ball that if 11 guys don't go 11 out of 11 on assignment, the play is bound for failure.
Moral of the story, it's not always the offensive line's fault.
Yeah, especially if it's like, he held it for 3 seconds and got sacked. Oh, those damn old linemen. Like, no, the receiver probably ran the wrong route.
If there's anything you learn from watching this podcast and listening to Sirles, it's that give the O-line some grace. It's not always their fault.
It's not. Sometimes it is, and we'll wear it, but it's not always.
Okay, let's circle back. How about this matchup? What are the keys, the three biggest things that need to happen for the Huskers to walk out of Indiana with a win?
Yeah, the number one key this week is we got to clean up our special teams. That's got to be a point of emphasis that we had on the bye. Good snaps, good holds, good kicks on all two phases, on punt and field goal, and then kickoff, kick return, making sure we're still sound in that, and punt return. But our special teams is going to play a factor in this game. When you talk about two teams that are pretty evenly matched, the special teams can sometimes be the X factor. And you start getting multiple punts blocked in a game, your winning percentage drastically seems to drop. So getting those things cleaned up and taking points when we can, when we have a field goal there to have it. The second thing is just be the more physical football team. Everyone wants to talk about Indiana and their schedule and whatnot, but being the most physical football team is going to win this game. Both teams are talented. Both teams have a lot of success coming into this game. It's going to come down to who can be the most physical on the line of scrimmage, on the back end, everything. Playing clean, not taking cheap shots, but just being physical and playing to the echo of the whistle. My last key is just to play smart football and penalty-free football. The penalties have become a little bit more than we would be desired in the start of this season. Getting penalties cleaned up, not eliminating plays, not extending drives for offenses, just playing within the realm of your technique. And if you're beat, sometimes you're beat. Don't compound a mistake and make it worse with a penalty, right? Understand that there's times to take a penalty. Like if you're an offensive lineman, your quarterback's going to get murdered, I'm taking a holding 10 out of 10 times. But if you're on the backside of a play and you've got a guy and he's starting to let go, it's okay to let him go sometimes. Right? It's okay to live to fight another day and not make a 5-yard gain now, first and 20. So just playing penalty-free football and good execution on that front, those are going to be really important come out of the bye this week, all three of those.
Good stuff. Okay, and in terms of individual performances, who are you looking for to step up? Who needs to have a big day for Nebraska?
Yeah, I'm going to look at a guy like Malcolm Hartzog. I'm going to look at guys like Deshaun Singleton and, Sierra Wright and say, go get it this week. Right, this offense is explosive. Explosive offense with explosive pass catchers and down the field shots. Go get it this week. Be lockdown coverage. Be tight. Be close in there. Don't let those guys go. So really, those like Malcolm Hartzog, Tommy Hill, or whoever is going to be out there, those DBs are going to be very much tested this week. So I'm really looking for kind of that whole DB room on defense, and then offensively, I want to see Thomas Fidone get going. Yeah. Right? We were starting to see Isaiah Nair. We're starting to see Banks. We're starting to see Dowdell. Like, Fidone's the last piece. The big Y tight end over the middle that's the blanket mattress for the quarterback to throw into, the security blanket, the stretch the linebackers deep over the seams. He's the final piece in this passing game to really start getting things opening up and really get things going. And he's had glimpses, but he's too good of a weapon to not. So I'd really love to see Fidone get going in this game.
Is this the best team Nebraska has faced? Is this the best team Indiana has faced?
It's definitely the best team Indiana has faced. That is 100%. It's hard for me to think that Indiana is much better than Illinois. Yeah. I think Illinois is a good football team. Right, Illinois is a very well coached, very good players on the edge. I think Illinois and Indiana are very comparable football teams as far as it goes. The difference being Illinois is more about the ground and pound and run it out versus the Illinois is about high fly, let it rip. So they're different, but I think that the Illinois and Indiana are very much our two best teams.
Okay, just a couple more things. Last week we spent some time on this, but how about Brian Buschini got himself a black shirt?
Black shirt. And I saw it was per request of the team, which I love. That for me, it's one thing, and that's where I was kind of last week. It's one thing if the special teams guys like, hey, should we get Buschini a black shirt? No, but when your boys come to bat for you on the defense side, and they're like, listen, this dude is one of us. I'm all for that, right? Like you wrap the punter, like, come here, little man, right? And you bring him in, you're like, you're one of us now. You can sit at the big kid table. I'm all about that.
Oh, that's awesome. So we're going to be on Big Fox, and which is Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt. It's their A team. So what was funny about that is at the press conference a couple days ago, Dylan, when he came out of meeting with the media, he was talking with Keith Mann, and he said, "Oh, Gus Johnson is calling the game." And then, I sat down with Ja'Cory Barney, and he is a guy that wants to get into broadcasting too, and he was pretty fired up too. Do you remember as a freshman the first time you were kind of in this kind of situation where you're like, oh my gosh, we're on ESPN or we're on Big Fox and it's Gus Johnson?
I don't know if I remember being Gus Johnson. I do remember, I think it was a Thursday night game we played in Kansas State in 2010, and we beat the brakes off of them. But it was like a big national televised game. We're going up to Washington. But, man, I love Gus Johnson. I wish I could just yell things into the microphone, right? Like Texas, Oklahoma, football, right? Like I just love how exciting he is and how much fun he is to watch. And so he's finally called a Nebraska game, and I'm just waiting to hear, like, he's going to have some type of, like, with Chris Olave, like, too sweet, right? Like he's going to have something for the game in that realm for either Raiola or Dowdell or someone. And I'm just going to be sitting there like, yes, give me more Gus Johnson.
I told Ja'Cory he needs to be a guy that Gus gives a nickname to.
Yes.
Nick, Gus always kind of has one of those guys that he nicknames and then it takes off. And so I told Ja'Cory, you're the guy.
Oh, I love it. I mean, anyone, if you get a nickname by Gus Johnson, you've made it. Like you have arrived.
But it should be awesome TV, makes for longer TV commercial breaks. So you'll hear us talking a little bit more on the radio, but should be fun. And just again, just big opportunity for this program to be on Big Noon back-to-back weeks at Indiana, at Ohio State, and the pregame show is going to be there. So huge opportunity with a lot of eyeballs on this program.
Absolutely, and that's what you want as a player. You want to show the world what you're about. You want to show the world what this university is about and what it stands for, and no better spot to do it than on Big Noon.
All right, great stuff, my friend. We'll be back here next week to break it all down. Hopefully another Huskers win, because you're still undefeated, by the way.
I am.
You have not broken down a loss.
I had a pretty good week in the picks, too. I wasn't bad in our picks segment.
You and Josh had another good week, and Greg and I did not do well. So we'll have to
a comeback story.
Chat about that on Sports Nightly later this week. All right, for Jeremiah Sirles, I'm Jessica Coody. This has been the Sideline Slice presented by Valentino's Pizza, the official pizza of the Huskers.
Go Big Red.
Valentino's, a slice of home you just can't get anywhere else. What started with a treasured family recipe has become a Nebraska tradition for over 65 years. Proud to be the official pizza of the Huskers.